All right, welcome in everyone to another deep dive. This time we're headed to the Maldives.
The Maldives, yes.
Virtually, of course. We're diving into the Deep Blue website.
That's right.
A listener suggested we check this one out. So lots of website content, brochures, that sort of thing. And we want to try to figure out really what this operation is all about. You know, for folks like us who love diving, what stands out about these guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we really want to understand is, first off, what exactly are they offering? And beyond that, what are their sort of core values? What's important to them? And ultimately, would this be a good fit for a diver looking for, well, a very specific kind of diving experience?
Okay, great. So right off the bat, I'm looking at their About Us page, and I'm noticing that, it's not just about like getting you in the water.
Right.
They're talking about these unforgettable experiences, forging a connection with the marine world. Sounds a little deeper than just checking dive sites off a list.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
That focus on unforgettable experiences, I think, is really about making a lasting impression. It's not just, oh, I saw a fish. It's
Yeah.
about like the quality of the encounter
Right.
with this majestic marine life, as they call it, which of course makes sense, right? They're in the Maldives. They're going to highlight manta rays, tiger sharks, those incredible vibrant coral reefs. These are bucket list items for a lot of divers.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how they describe themselves. Like they call themselves a community of ocean lovers. There's this shared passion for exploration and a commitment to responsible diving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds like they're trying to maybe attract a specific type of diver.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But by calling themselves a community, they're trying to, I think, build a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
shared values. And then they mention expertly guided trips, but they also talk about, a deeper connection with the marine world. So it seems like they're catering to divers who want that, like excitement, that thrill, but also a more thoughtful, mindful kind of underwater experience.
Okay, so let's dig into their mission a bit. And it seems like this idea of blending adventure and conservation is really central to who they are. Like they want you to, explore the ocean, but with a sense of responsibility. It's like the thrill of discovery should always be balanced with respect for the environment.
I completely agree. It's not just, hey, we're selling you a product. It's, we have a philosophy.
Hmm.
And they talk about, premier and unforgettable trips. So there's that adventure side. But right after that, they jump right into their commitment to conservation, promoting these responsible diving practices.
Right.
That seems to be like fundamental to their identity.
And they're not shying away from this idea of being, I guess, more than just a tour operator, right?
Yeah.
They call themselves a community united in preserving the oceans. They want to have a positive impact on these ecosystems. That's a pretty big statement, I think.
It is. And I think what they're trying to do is give their customers, the divers who choose them, the feeling that they're part of something bigger
Right.
than just their own personal enjoyment. This community aspect,
Yeah.
this positive impact, it creates a shared purpose.
Absolutely. So their vision for the future really builds on this. They want to be, and I'm quoting here, the global beacon for responsible underwater exploration, where thrill of adventure meets a commitment to preserving the ocean's wonders. Ambitious, right? When they say global beacon, what kind of scale are we talking here?
I mean, it suggests they're not content with just operating in the Maldives, right? They
Yeah.
want to influence the whole diving tourism industry.
Yeah.
And again, that emphasis on a community united,
Yeah.
it reinforces this idea that it's a broader movement they're aiming for.
Yeah.
And they want to inspire a new wave of conscious adventurers. So they're looking beyond like the current diving community. They're thinking about how future generations engage with the ocean.
Yeah. This really stood out to me in their vision. They want to set the standard for sustainable practices in diving education and trips. So it's not just about how they operate themselves, but they want to have this ripple effect throughout the industry.
That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
how do they go about setting such a standard, right?
Exactly.
You have to demonstrate best practices, lead by example. And, they talk about making sure each participant becomes an ambassador for responsible marine stewardship. That's key.
Right.
Because if they can educate and inspire their divers, those divers will then hopefully promote those responsible practices in their own diving, in their communities.
Exactly. And to wrap up their vision, they envision a world where every single dive contributes to a healthy ocean, leaving this legacy of awe, respect, and preservation for future generations.
It's a long-term vision, very conservation focused.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that idea of a positive legacy It really seems to be driving their whole approach.
Okay, so they have this whole section titled Make Bubbles Responsibly, and it really emphasizes, respecting the ocean, being mindful.
Right.
It's a pretty clear call to action, like reminding us that we're guests in this underwater world.
What I like about that is how simple and catchy that phrase is, make bubbles responsibly.
Yeah.
It really gets the message across about environmentally conscious diving. And when they say every dive is an opportunity to appreciate, protect, and preserve, they're trying to instill that sense of personal responsibility with every single dive you take.
And this idea, make every dive a meaningful experience, kind of brings everything together, right? It's not just about checking off those dive sites, seeing cool creatures. It's about being present, respectful, understanding your impact.
It's about taking it all in, being aware of your surroundings.
Okay, so let's touch on some of the practical stuff. Their website mentions promotional discounts on fun dives if you book in advance. Always a good thing to know.
Of course, yeah.
Standard website navigation, Home, about us, team, events, prices, FAQs, contact us.
Makes sense.
I do think the events section is interesting. Makes me think they might offer more than just like your typical dive trip.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe they have like special conservation-focused trips
Right.
or workshops, maybe even like community gatherings related to ocean conservation. It could be another way to build that community they talk so much about.
Yeah, good point. So they list their location, AA Razdu, Maldives.
Got to know where to find them, right?
Exactly.
And then there's that accept announcement about checking their upcoming trip schedule,
Right.
which is basically just a way to keep potential customers informed.
Okay, so as we resurface from this deep dive into the Deep Blue website,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear they're trying to be more than just your average dive operation. Their identity is really tied to this idea of marine conservation. They're all about those adventurous but also responsible diving experiences in the Maldives.
Yeah.
Seems like they're really focused on creating meaningful encounters with the marine life, building that sense of community among divers, and of course, promoting those sustainable practices.
Throughout their whole website, it's all about that balance between, having these awesome underwater adventures and at the same time being committed to protecting the environment.
Yeah. So I guess the question for our listeners is, when you're choosing a dive operator, what specific actions or practices do you look for to make sure your own underwater adventures are aligning with responsible stewardship of the ocean?
That's something to think about, definitely, next time you're planning a trip.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.